Hello and welcome to livealittlehigher.com. Rosh Chodesh Tov. Today we begin the month of Av, well known as Menachem Av. Menachem means consolation, to comfort, and Av comes from the word Abba, Father. So it's a month in which our Father in heaven consoles us, He comforts us down here from our exile, and He gives us the strength to continue even in such a dark place in which we can't understand suffering, we can't understand what's going on. Sometimes the world looks so upside down, especially in these days, which nothing makes sense, and there's so much evil, but at the same time there's so much kindness and so much light and so much goodness. And there's this paradox in our world that is so hard to really grasp, and but nevertheless Hashem comforts us in His way, in which He gives us His promises of a better world, of a world of redemption. And this is what keeps us going and gives us hope and continues to comfort us and give us strength in this world, so we can continue in rectifying it and coming to the ultimate destination, which is the coming of Mashiach and the rebuilding of our third temple. So it is the month of the low point, because on the 9th of Av, which is in 9 days, is the day in which the spies came out of the land of Israel when the Jewish people were in the desert, and they went to spy the land. Moshe sent 12 people, one of each tribe. They were actually the princes of every tribe. They were the holiest men in the Jewish people, and when they came back, they came with a back report in which they were saying things about Israel that gave a lot of the people became scared and very unsure of going into the land, and they started to cry because they said there were giants and there were giant fruit, and it was a land that swallowed the people. And the people got very scared and they started to cry. And on that fateful night, Hashem got very upset, and He said to the people, if you're crying for no reason, I'm going to give you a reason to cry from now on. And this is a day in which a lot of calamities have happened to the Jewish people. It's days in which in the Inquisition, they signed papers to execute Jews. And it's a day in which in the World War II, they also signed papers to send the Jews to deportation camps. And it's a day in which a lot of calamities have happened. It's the day in which the first and the second temples were destroyed. And these 9 days are 9 days in which the Jewish people really take care of themselves, and they don't go to the beach, they don't go on vacations. It's times in which we really are extra careful, because the energy of these 9 days is not a very positive energy. But nevertheless, it says, our sages teach us, that Mashiach is born on the 9th of Av. So it's not such a bad day. Really, the cure comes with the disease. Before Hashem creates a disease, He already has the cure for it. And on the 15th of Av, which is the high point of the month, it is the happiest day of the year, in which it says there are no happier days for Israel than the 15th of Av and Yom HaKippurim. And this comes from Mishnah Tanit, because it's the day in which one finds his Bashert. So on the 15th of Av, in the times of the temple, the Jewish girls and the Jewish boys would come out at night. The girls would be all dressed in white, and the men would come out and they would look at the girls. And on that day, many marriages came out from that day. So it's a very auspicious day. And the Jewish religion or Jewish life existence is a complete paradox, because the greatest destruction brings the greatest building. And this accords with the teaching of our sages that Mashiach is born on the 9th of Av, and relative to all other souls of Israel, the soul of Mashiach, who comes to redeem Israel from her state of spiritual as well as physical exile, is like our groom to his bride. So it's like the groom came to marry his bride. And after his birth on the 9th of Av, he reveals himself to his bride and betroths her on the 15th of Av. The letter that rules this month, according to the Sefer Yetzirah, which is the book of formation, is the letter Tet. And the letter Tet, which resembles a womb, if you look at it if you know how the letter Tet, you know how it looks, but if not, Google it up and you'll see in the alphabet of the Jewish alphabet, you'll see that it resembles a womb, and it equals to 9. Every letter in the Jewish calendar has a numerical value, and the numerical value of the letter Tet is 9, and it corresponds to the 9 months of pregnancy. In the month of Av, the 9 months are condensed and concentrated into 9 days. And from Rosh Chodesh Av, the yahrzeit of Aaron the priest, Aaron HaKohen, whose name comes from the word pregnant because it's the word Beherayon, to the 9th of Av, the day which, as mentioned above, is the birthday of Mashiach. And the zodiac sign, or the mazal of this month, is Leo. In Hebrew, we know it as Aryeh, which means lion. And the Aryeh symbolizes the super-rational power of the divine will. And Av, also, which comes from the word father, Abba, the father in Kabbalah represents Chokhmah, which is wisdom. And wisdom is like that spark, that idea, that first idea that comes into your brain. And that you need a will and a desire to be able to expound this Chokhmah, to be able to expound this wisdom and bring it into Bina, into understanding. So the initial manifestation of God's will to destroy the temples really, and in truth, is purely for the sake of reconstructing the temple with all of its spiritual meaning and significance for Israel and the entire world for eternity. So the only reason that Hashem destroyed the temples was to rebuild the third temple. Because the first 2 temples really, they were built by human beings. One was built by King Solomon, and the other one was built by Herod. So they were not built by Hashem. And this third temple really is built by God. And it's up there. We're just waiting for it to come down. It's already built. So in the words of our sages, the lion, Nebuchadnezzar, it's saying that the lion is Nebuchadnezzar, who is the person that from Babylon, the king of Babylon, that destroyed the first temple, who is referred to in the Bible as lion by Yirmiyahu, came unto the month of the lion, which is the month of Av, and destroyed the lion, which is the temple, which is referred to in the Bible, especially with regard to the altar as the lion. The altar where they made the sacrifices is regarded as the lion. In order that the lion, and here it's referring to God, of whom it said, the lion roars, who shall not fear, come on the month of the lion and rebuilds the lion. So if this makes any sense to you, this is the month of the lion, and God willing, in our days we will see the rebuilding of our temple. So this secret is also reflected in the numerical value of Aryeh, and Aryeh in the Gematria is 216, which means Geburah. Geburah is also 216, and Geburah means boundaries, discipline, justice, strictness, might. And Geburah's divine power is the divine power which is responsible for the Tzimtzum. So when Hashem created the world, He created in a way of contractions and diminution of the divine light. He did it in such a way that we almost don't perceive Hashem in this world, and He did it so we can have free will. Because if we would be able to see God in everything, and it would be so palpable for us, then we would be like robots. We wouldn't be able to choose between right and wrong. So this divine light and energy, as it said with regard to the beginning of Av, when Av enters, we diminish in joy. When Av enters, we diminish in joy. So what we do when Av enters, when this month enters, we have to be less happy. Less happy in the sense that pleasures, physical pleasures, like bathing, going to the beach, taking a vacation, eating meat, drinking wine, listening to music. All these things we have to abstain from in these 9 days, like if we were mourning for someone that passed away. It's almost like if you're sitting in a shiva. And this is so we can really connect to the size of what we are missing in our lives. Because when we are so in tune with the physical world, and that's what runs our lives, then we are not really feeling what we're missing in the spiritual sense. And so when we abstain ourselves from so much physicality, then we can really connect to that part of ourselves that realizes, in the physical sense, we're also missing. There's something missing here. There's something that is not right. There's something we have to really correct. And so it says here that Hesed, which is kindness, love and kindness, is when you multiply it by 3, it comes to 216 also. And the divine power, which builds all of reality, as it says in Psalms 89, the world is built by the power of Hesed. Hashem created the world with love and kindness. 3 times Hesed represents to the building of the 3 temples. So 1 temple, 2 temples, 3 temples times Hesed, which is 72, comes to the gematria of 216, which also is Aryeh, the lion. And the tribe that rules this month is Shimon, who is one of the sons of Leah. And Shimon comes from the word to hear, which means shamoa. And the sin of the spies on the 9th of Av entailed the speaking of evil. It was lashon hara, evil speech of the land of Israel. And the people accepting that lashon hara by hearing what they were saying, the evil tongue comes to the ramification of the month of Av as the rectification of hearing. And the Hafetz Haim teaches in his laws of lashon hara that when you end up hearing lashon hara, when you hear someone talk evil about someone else, you should, when you listen to what they're saying, to be able not to fall into the sin of lashon hara, you should always give the other person the benefit of the doubt and think inside of yourself, what I'm listening really is one side of the story. I'm not listening well. I'm not hearing the other side of the story. And in life, there's always three truths. It's your truth, my truth, and the truth. So when we protect ourselves in this way, we are rectifying the hearing of what we're listening to. So Shimon is the only tribe that Moses did not explicitly bless at the end of the Torah, and this was due to his frustration with the tribe of Shimon, because their involvement more than all of the other tribes with the sin of Baal Peor. And if you remember, if you listen to the classes on the parasha of Pinchas, Shimon, Simri, who was the prince of the tribe of Shimon at that time, ended up having illicit relations with Cosbi, who was a Moabite princess, and he ended up doing more than anybody else idol worship to this idol Baal Peor, and his whole tribe was very much involved into these sins of idolatry. And the name Shimon divides into 2 words which spell Sham Avon, which means there is iniquity. Also Shimon, we can see from here how Moses is so connected to Shimon, because Moses comes from the tribe of Levi, and when Jacob left the land of his father-in-law and he was on his way to Canaan, he ended up in the land of Shechem. And in this land, the prince of Shechem, the son of the king of Shechem, fell in love with his daughter Dinah, and he kidnapped her, then raped her. And both Shimon and Levi, who were the sons of Jacob, decided to make a scheme in which they said to Shechem that if every male would do a circumcision and they would convert to Judaism, he could stay with Dinah. And what they did was that every male actually had a circumcision, and on the 3rd day, which is the day in which they're in most pain, they slaughtered every male from Shechem and they finished them off. And so it was very gruesome, and this was a very dark spot for Jacob, having 2 sons that ended up doing such a gruesome act. But in reality, they did it to honor their sister and to take revenge for what was done to her. So in Kabbalah, we are taught that the primary reincarnation of Moses is in Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, he who more than any other of the sages revealed the inner dimensions of the Torah of Moses in the Holy Zohar, and that the generation of the power of Shimon leads to the destruction of the temple, and the rectification and elevation of that very power brings about the eternal reconstruction of the temple. So that's why Shimon is the tribe that is ruling this month, because of what he did. This is what has to be rectified in our days. And the rectification of the sins and iniquities of Israel, which brought to the destruction of the temple in the month of Av, the month of Shimon, is by clinging to the most essential attribute of Moses' humility. So they're so interconnected, because in reality the only way in which we can rectify our boo-boos in life is by being humble and accepting that we have things to fix. And when we are able to fix or rectify the things that are not right in our life, then that's when we're able to reconstruct the temple. Then the word avon, which means sin, permutates to spell anav, which is humble. And the unique term by which the Torah praises Moses, and the man Moses was very humble, anav, more than any other man on the face of the earth. The name Shimon transforms into the month of Av. From there is iniquity, Sham Avon, to there is the humble one, Sham Anav. So Shimon will transform that part of him into humility, and the ability of Shimon to so metamorphosize depends on his inner sense of hearing. So everything comes from what we hear and how we hear. And Moses addresses Israel with the most all-inclusive statement of the Torah in Deuteronomy: "Hear, Shema Israel, listen Israel, God is one." Moses speaks to the Israel through the soul root of Shimon, inner hearing, which comes with a deep sense of humility in the soul. And even though Moses did not explicitly bless Shimon, our sages teach us that he alluded to him in the first word of the blessing to Judah: "Hear, Shema Israel," and he alludes to him in that. So Judah also is very much connected to Shimon, and the Messiah comes from Judah. And in the division of the land of Israel to the 12 tribes, Shimon inherited his portion with the larger portion of Judah. And this is the only instance that one tribe inherited its portion within another. And when the two names Shimon and Judah are added together, it adds to 466 plus 30 equals 496, which comes to Malchut, which in Kabbalah means kingdom. Thus we learn that the Malchut of Judah, the kingship of Judah, depends upon the presence and partnership of Shimon. So he cannot do it alone. He needs Shimon to be able to be a ruler in the land of Israel. And Judah corresponds to the month of Nisan. This gets even more interesting, because and the sense of speech in Nisan is the sense that rules that month is speech, and corresponds to the month of Av, the first two letters and subroot in Hebrew of the word Aviv, the name in Torah for the month of Nisan, and the sense of hearing, which is in the month of Av, is the fifth month from Nisan, whose letter is Hey, which is 5. So the two senses of speech and hearing are a pair. Like they go together hand in hand. Like you cannot speak if someone is not going to listen to you. And you cannot listen to someone if he's not speaking to you. And the sin of the people's hearing, accepting the evil tongue, spoken by the spies on the 9th of Av. So the symptoms of exile are lack of tolerance, lack of respect towards other people. We don't know how to emphasize with others, and really to be able to listen to someone else, to hear them deeply, comes from that ability to emphasize with somebody else's pain. And the sense of this month really is the hearing. And we need to understand someone from where he's coming from. So sometimes a person is going through something, and you would never in your life be able to accept that that person is dealing with whatever he's dealing in that way, because you are a complete different human being. You come from a different place, you were taught differently, you experience differently, you have a different personality. So sometimes it's very hard to have empathy towards other people, but if we're ready, we really can get a little lower and understand where people come from and understand their upbringing, how they came to be who they are, what they had to go through in life, the problems they're dealing with now, mentally where they are, and we are able to go into them, although it's impossible to really comprehend because we're not in their shoes and we will never be, but at the end, we will be able to have a broader view of what's going on, and we will be able to understand and have more empathy towards their plight and see it from their eyes and not from our eyes. So in the beginning of Isaiah, read on Shabbat before the 9th of Av, it says, if you desire tovu from the word Av and hear the sense of Av, you shall partake of the goodness of the land. So what it's saying is that the sense of hearing is the sense of inner balance. It's the foundation of rectified existence. So when we're able to hear, like a person can close their eyes and they can hear. You can go to the ocean. You don't need to look at the ocean to feel the ocean. You can hear it just by only listening to it. But to see is a different reality. You can see something and at the end it's not what you think it is. Like you can see two people walking together and you think they're going somewhere and it ends up that they have nothing to do one with the other. It looks like they're walking together and they're going somewhere, but the reality is a different reality. But when you hear something, then that's what it is because you heard it. So the reality is a more truthful reality. So a well-balanced ear, a well-oriented sense of hearing possesses the ability to discern and distinguish in everything one hears truth from falseness, and as it said in Job, the ear discerns the words. Ozen, Malin, Tivhan. The initial letters of this phrase spell emet, truth. So when you hear, it's more truthful than when you see it. And the controlling limb of this month is the kidney, the left kidney. And in the tree of life, the left kidney represents Hod, humility. And the advice given by the left kidney is how to properly hear and integrate the truth into one's consciousness. So to be able to acknowledge what is the truth in the world, which is Hashem's truth, what Hashem's will, we need to be humble people. If we're not humble and everything is about us, then there's no way in which we are able to rectify what needs to be rectified in this world, because we'll feel like everything we're doing is fine. So in accordance with the great principle that the right is always more spiritual than the left, the right kidney is netzach, is endurance. And to be able to change our ways, we need endurance. So this left kidney and the right kidney are a combination, and we need both of them to be able to fulfill that part of ourselves of rectification. If we don't have both aspects, the netzach, the endurance and the resilience to change, and the humbleness to acknowledge what needs to be changed, then it's very hard to be able to fulfill this purpose. And the word kidney, which is kulia, comes from kol, which means all, and the numerical value is 50. And our sages teach us that the age of 50, a person is able to give advice. And the two kidneys are two components that are complementary one to the other, and the sum of the both of them comes to 100, which in the squared is 10, and 10 represents the 10 sephiras, which are 3 intellectual and 7 emotional sephirot or attributes that need to be aligned. And once we are all aligned, then Mashiach will be able to come. So our main focus on this month should be to love others and to feel concerned for them, to really feel for them and to be empathetic towards them, and wanting that they have their well-being. Like, not always be thinking about ourselves. Don't be so self-centered. Look at other people. Look what they need. What is it that they really are lacking at this moment, and see if you can help them attain it. And the cosmic plan will be received at the right time. So the suffering that we endure in the exile, most of it we cannot explain, and this gives a lot of anxiety. But at the end of the days, the day will come in which Hashem will reveal Himself to us, and we will be able to understand everything that has happened to us from day one. And what is required from us is to come to strive for moral perfection, to be a person that lives by what is correct, to live a moral life of values, of Torah values, and that our actions are a reflection of our thoughts, that our thought, speech, and action are one. And by separating the good from the evil in this world, that's the way in which we're able to elevate, and that's the way in which we're able to prepare it for the imminent redemption, hopefully in our days. So I want to wish you a good month, a healthy month.